The Mayor speaking earlier. Well, Miyelani Holeni is the Group Chief Advisor at the Interso Consulting Group. He joins us now. Miyelani, good afternoon. Thanks very much indeed for coming in. I mean, the Mayor talks about a backlog. It's a huge... I mean, no metro has 27 billion rand to spend on fixing water. And if we don't, we're going to have major problems in Joburg.
So I think the issue that the Mayor is highlighting is the mammoth task, of managing a big city which is cosmopolitan, which is the melting pot in many ways of so many things in South Africa. So if you look at a 27 billion rands the backlog in terms of water infrastructure, and that means that, the water that is bought from rainwater, it's lost, somewhere, in the transmission pipes, to the point where they cannot account for the revenue for that water. But importantly, that water is not reaching some of the residents. On the one side, there's talk of penetration and very high penetration of service delivery, 96% for waste, 95%, for electricity and so on. So one has to marry these two numbers as well to be able to find, the happy medium to see exactly where the quality of service currently is for Joburg Water as well as the city. But the issue of investment in terms of water, it's not only about water infrastructure, but also about electricity and the rest of the infrastructure around roads so that they don't collapse and so on.
I mean, the city can't actually collect all the revenue it's supposed to collect. So if it can't collect the revenue, manage the money that it has, it's never going to get on top of an infrastructure backlog like this, which requires the spending of huge amounts of money.
So in the speech of the Mayor as well, we see that, there's, I think for a fair amount of, talk about financial stability. But there's not a mention except for the fact that, there are revenue projects that are going on. So this is where we would expect, at least, some hints in terms of how innovative is the city becoming as well, because the issue of dealing with completeness of revenue generation, which is very strong and required by the city, as well as dealing with the leakages, which is in part, the non-revenue water, as well as, the electricity. But in this case is that, where are the other revenue line items going to come from to augment as well as to finance, part of that investment that is required. And of course, to strengthen the balance sheet, because the borrowing as well requires that, there is the means to pay back some of those loans that would be extended by the likes of DBSA or even the commercial banks, from there on. So I think there's a lot that, also needs to be done. Perhaps it will come in the budget speech, but around, the fact that, where is the revenue generation going and how is the income of the city growing with the services that are being rendered, as well as new services where they can derive revenue from. They mentioned, for instance, the asphalt quarry that they have, that they can produce their own asphalt. It's a positive one. Sell it to the rest of, the industry or the other metros and start generating revenue from such. So that's the likes of the new revenue. But there needs to be a strong and concerted effort to drive the revenue generation and, of course, to offset, the costs, the rising costs for that matter.
There's so many things to it. I mean, you talk about asphalt, so you'd use that to fix potholes. And he spoke, I mean, it's an unbelievable number. I think it's sort of 40,000 potholes that have been filled in by the city. You can fill in as many potholes if you want, but you won't have to fill in potholes if you resurface roads according to the maintenance schedule that roads often have when they're built. And this has become a big problem in Joburg. You would need to actually do this properly.
Preventative maintenance, I think, is one that we can paint across the entire local government, as well as, Sunral perhaps doing slightly, better. But the issue of preventative maintenance, if it comes to roads, if it comes to general infrastructure, is one that needs to be elevated as well. And there needs to be a lot more capability and capacity put into planning things ahead of time. Because what we are seeing that, if the roads are degraded, it means they are past, their life, time. So that should have been planned, 5, 10 years ago, that there's a new road or there's resurfacing which is going to take place and so on. So the issue of planning, I think, is within the city is one that, we are pointing to sort of a weakness that across the board, the planning cycles are continuously being degraded, and we're dealing with reactive, issues. So the forward-thinking side of things is lacking, or at least is not coming to the fore as it should. Of course, it requires that, it has the sophisticated skills as well as the engineers or the accountants and all of the people that make things work, but can forward, plan and put plans that, are more credible. There is a plan for water, but let there be plans or master plans, for the other services in terms of how they're going to do preventative maintenance, as as well as new builds that should come forth.
And Miyelani, quickly if you can, one of the themes of the speech is about stability. I don't know if the Mayor mentioned political stability. He is from a party with just 3 seats. He's really governing because of the ANC and the EFF, who have an informal agreement but won't vote for each other's candidates. Can Joburg have political stability, which would lead to better service delivery in a situation like that?
Well, I think, my remark is that, I saw at least the Mayor a lot more comfortable this time around, presenting the speech. It may suggest that, they are kind of handling the issue of governance. But Johannesburg as a city is one that has very strong governance and historically has a strong governance ethos, within it. So that, hopefully from the officials is driving the fact that, there must be business as usual, as well as driving, the services. So I think from a political point of view, there's always, changes and machinations and different things that we may not always see in the background. But I think from what we are seeing, they are doing their best to make sure that they hold together a city. And I think the transformation of the city is what faces the coalition as it is. The success of the coalition will be measured on how they follow the Growth and Development Plan 2040 of Johannesburg. That is how you will test, the stability of how the political leadership is holding together, as well as the administrative side.
Miyelani Holeni, thank you very much indeed. Group Chief Advisor at the Inter Consulting Group.